Hi guys, this is Bareerah, the super storyteller, as always live and doing interviews from new people. So today my guest is Michael Ashbarrel, but recently he's called Michael. Okay guys, so today my guest is really inspiration for all of us, and he really set an example of hard work. Okay, so, guys, I think I will give you a short introduction before he will talk. Michael H. Ballard is specialized in developing programs to help lift people and up. He assists others on how to become more balanced, focused, and effective through his programs on resilience. Michael has been featured on CTV, CBC, City TV, and has been featured in over 250 interviews across the world and many more. Okay, guys, that's enough all his introduction. Okay, guys, I think it is time to invite our guest. I mean, speak. But before he can speak, this interview series is supported by Rehan Foundation and Institute of Peace, and is part of Connecting the World. Okay, guys, I think that our guest can speak now. Yes, hi,
Hello.
how are you?
It's fine. Wonderful. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Toronto, Canada. It's a little brisk because winter's arriving, but it's only cold. It's minus
Yes.
5. So it's cold, but it's not dangerous cold. You live here, you have the clothes for it. So it's a good day.
Yeah, I have already. In Canada, I hope it will be snowing on your side. Yeah, because in Pakistan, I mean in Karachi, in our city, it is really hot now. But because it hasn't been changed, the weather is changing now. Okay. As you said that you have come into my show, and I'm really happy that you have come into my show and. As you said that I want to know more about you and for our audience, as you that I have already introduced you, but I want to know that who are you as a person. So please explain who are you as a person and what do you think who are you as a person. Yes.
Well, thank you. Well, I was born in Toronto, Canada, a long time ago. I like to tease people when I work with children and youth that I'm older than dinosaurs, but younger than the invention of dirt. Not true, of course,
Mhm.
but it's good for a laugh. And so I got to school, went to public school in a little place called King City, Ontario, a little village of 500 people, and went to
Mhm.
a 7-room school. So 6 grades and one extra room for the principal and the teachers. And so that was
Mhm.
quite interesting because with only 7 rooms, you got to say hi and play with the kids from different grades. And
Yes.
it meant for a real tight knit group because it wasn't a big school. There was not many of us. And then when I got older and got ready for high school, they built a big high school for 1,100 students, and they bussed kids in from all over the region because the region I grew up in was very
Mhm.
rural. So most kids in the school, 90% of them lived on farms. So that was interesting because I was a townie. I lived in town and they lived on a farm. So that was learning about different ways of life because I had a tiny idea what it was like to live on a farm, but it sure wasn't like living in a house in a small town. I found out the meaning of chores was different if you lived on a farm than if you lived in a house. My chores were 20 minutes a day. Their chores could be an hour to 5 hours a day to help support the farm. So that was really a wow. We look the same, but lifestyle's real different. So that was my background, and I was blessed to have parents that taught me what we nowadays would call emotional social intelligence skills. So our schools were always fundraising to buy this or buy tools or something for the kids or classroom or playground. And so I got good at knocking on doors. Hello, it's Michael. I go to the Doris M. Patton Public School and we're selling chocolate bars or nuts as a fundraiser for. And so I found out that I did better than most kids. And almost every year I was in, there was only 2 or 3 kids that were as good as me or better than me for selling and doing door to door. So that was like, oh, I have something I'm good at, really good at. So that was interesting. So it served me well in high school because I got jobs in retail selling, and that helped because you get paid more. So that helped me realize that, if I develop my skills, I can possibly make more money. So that was a big aha moment. Nothing my parents hadn't taught me or a few teachers, but when you experience it yourself, it's, oh, parents are right, teachers are right. I can do this. So I ended up going to college to take a sales and marketing course and graduated in the marketing and sales course and got a job doing store installations, which was really interesting. A little boring because it was the same thing. Once you've done it 40 times, the 50th time or the 58th time, but it planted a foundation in me that I could take a temporary team of temporary workers, train them on safety, train them on process and procedures to set up a store. And we started setting safety records and speed records. So we were opening these small 900, 2,000 square foot stores a day and 2 days faster than everybody else with a perfect safety record. So that was really exciting to be able to do that. And so I'm very grateful for that opportunity that they took a chance, because back in the 1970s in Canada, for those types of jobs, you typically had to have a university degree. And Canada had come out with, in the province of Ontario, college diplomas. So not as long as, but very focused on the practical. How do I get started? What do I do? How do I do? So it was very much a diploma to get you your first job and second job, or maybe your third job. And so it worked out very well for me. And along the way, I got a chronic illness diagnosis, and that's why you and I have met, because I speak on resiliency, and the chronic illness got me to acknowledge that I didn't have all the answers. I wasn't Superman. Boy, I had a whole lot of hurt going on in my digestive tract with this silly illness. And from there, fast forward, my cancer doctor, I had 10 years later diagnosed with a digestive tract cancer, and that was frightening and scary. And after surgery, by a few days, they found out the cancer was in 4 spots. So that was more frightening and even scarier, if that's possible. And then it was like, now, wait a minute, Michael. You were raised in faith. You took Shaolin Kung Fu, which was not about just fighting other people, but about managing your mind and acknowledging your spirit and training your brain to have a best quality journey and possibly outcome. So that's when I started to really practice what I'd been taught. I was not a very good martial artist by any stretch, okay? Nobody had to worry about me being a dangerous fighter physically, but emotionally and mentally, it really taught me. So I started walking through the hospital wards. My spouse bought me some karate pajamas for fun, but I'd wear them and I'd walk around the hospital ward with my chemotherapy pole and my IV pole for fluids and nutrition. And people are like, you okay? I said, I'm scared out of my wits, but I'm pretending to be a Kung Fu health master. I'm beating the cancer up inside. So that was one of my first big lessons in life, that what I'm going through is overwhelming, scary, but I don't have to be scared all the time. And there's do you have the issue, or does the issue have you? And it's normal for the issue to own us at points, but we can't let it own us all the time. What can we do rationally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and have us own the issue? Yes, I still had cancer. Yes, it was in 4 locations. Yet I had a very good surgical team who had left North America because we didn't do what they'd gone to Europe to learn. And he brought back new surgical techniques so I could have a better quality outcome. So I was like, okay, so do you have the issue, or does the issue have you? Perspective. And the second one was gratitude. I have a surgeon that's the only one in 5 states and provinces around me that can do what I do. And I get to have him work on my surgery and my cancer to fight the fight. So that was very fortunate. It didn't mean I was going to live, but it meant I had a bigger chance of living. So perspective, issue have you have the issue. had to learn to not listen to some of the negative people in my life that I can love and respect, but don't have to listen to, if that makes sense. Because, some relatives,
Mm-hmm.
some friends, oh, you got cancer and it spread? Oh, no, you're going to die. Yes, I am. We're just not sure when. And I like to think I was 27 at the time. It's in 30 to 60 years from now. So that was exciting to get that, practice that, and have it actually work. Easy to say, took practice and reminding myself every day. Look up,
Mm-hmm.
be in the moment, practice, perspective, gratitude. And then one day, one of the head nurses came to me and said, Michael, we really admire your attitude. And well, we know you wanted to play the piano. We don't have a piano on the cancer ward, but we have a piano in the psychology ward for people in the hospital for mental health issues. Would you go play the piano for them and for you? Absolutely. So my music had come to the hospital with me, up the elevator to the psych ward, where I got to meet all these wonderful people. I played some old 1930s to 1970s music. This was the 1980s. I was sick, and some of them were old enough to know some of the 60s and 70s songs, and some of them were like, "Why are you playing this 1940s music?" I said it was written during the war. Listen to the message of hope. So different
Mm-hmm.
circumstances for you and me, but this song was written about hope. It's a message of hope and relationships. So like, oh, so again, by helping the people in the psych ward, it helped me. So another lesson for me was when you're down and out, what can you do to help others? Because lifting others up lifts you up. And it was really sweet. I'll never forget, one of the gentlemen had been in a serious accident. So he was in the hospital for two reasons, psych ward, and he'd had a head injury. And he had this big bandage, and he'd shake my hand very seriously. And Mr. Ballard, thank you, sir. I said, we're within a few years of the same age. I think he was actually older than me, but doesn't matter. I said, so just call me Mike or Michael or Michelle or Miguel, whatever you want. Oh, yeah, but you're happy. I don't know how to be happy. I said, well, coming here was a risk. I didn't know if you'd like the music I played. I didn't know if we'd get along. Were you going to be a grumpy Gus and complain about what I played? Oh, so I just said, okay, they could be all those things, or they just might
Mm-hmm.
appreciate, and I will appreciate that. So that's what got me started on resiliency. I had a concussion at 6 years old where my roommate with a concussion in the same space. I wanted quiet, no light, whispering, and he wanted the lights on. Where was his? And it was the 1960s. You just didn't jump on an airplane every hour to get a flight home. Father was in Europe doing work on a project. Grandparents were in Florida. Other grandparents were in Arizona, in another country, and they were all driving home. He wasn't going to see them for 3 days. His mom was there, one auntie. He wanted his father and both sets of grandparents, and he was very loud, yelling and screaming about where was his grandparents. So that introduced me to the two people having a close to identical situation could respond very differently. Not bad or good, just real different. So that made me appreciate that perspective. I didn't know it was perspective at 6 years old, but different points of view were valid, even if you didn't like what the other one sounded like. So those are some of the things that I've gone through that got me to appreciate that we
Mm-hmm.
can learn to be more resilient. And so I want your listeners and viewers to understand that resiliency is in part a choice. So that's
Yes.
how I got here.
Oh, that's a really great story to know, and I have learned a lot from it. And it is really cool and really interesting and part of a really inspiration to all of us. And
Thank you.
we have learned a lot. So, okay, as you know that it is time to move on and move on. So, I know that you have already mentioned about your childhood, but I want to know that what have you learned from your childhood story? And I want to know more about your childhood and how did you learn from it and many things more. So, yes.
So got two brothers and one sister adopted, so that was wonderful to grow up in a family with siblings, because when you go for drives, you got somebody to talk to and somebody to talk to and somebody to talk to, because car built for six with six in it or five in it plus the dog, family dog. It was a crowd, so you learn to get along in small spaces, which was a good lesson. But one of my lessons that I was given at a grade 1 was my teacher, Miss Patton, who they named the school after. Tells you how long she was a teacher and how good a teacher she was. They named the school after her. After only 3 weeks in grade 1, she sent me home with a typed letter, very official. And it said something like, to my parents, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Ballard, in observing Michael practicing what they used to call penmanship and learning how to print, I knew the letters and I knew the numbers, but I have a disconnect. This and this, pardon me, don't work very well." So she had me practicing and doing things that nowadays in North America, at least, we would practice in junior, senior kindergarten, eye-hand coordination. But back then we didn't have kindergarten. So I like to gain when I work with kids and youth. I tease that I'm so old they hadn't invented kindergarten yet. And so she had me practicing in a special primer, and it was very obvious that Michael was not going to be a good printer. You could tell me to slow down, don't push so hard, and my brain does not make that happen. So she wrote the most lovely letter that, again, perspective, frame of reference. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Ballard, in testing Michael and having him practice, it's come to my attention that he appears to have an eye-hand coordination issue. Now, school will be hard on him because of this, because we expect neatness. But sometimes not every student can be neat." She was talking on the page. I'm pretty neat. I shave and shower. That wasn't the type of neatness. She was talking printing. She said, "But I observed that in the classroom, Michael has other skills that far exceed children of his age. And that in the playground, Michael has other skills that exceed his age. So school will be tough on him. He just has to be doing his best until he gets out. And then he will do very well in life because of these other skills." So there I am in grade 1. I can't even do the basic print. I couldn't print my name within the great big lines. It was annoying. It was made me grumpy about it. Stupid paper, stupid printing. And of course, when you push too hard, the lead breaks. So I went through the big pencils real fast. And so it became very apparent that whole year that she cared about me, and she got me to do my best to print, and I eventually got a little better. But for your viewers, if you watch the old TV murder mystery movies where the detective comes to the victim's home, they say, "Who are they talking to?" And there's a notepad beside the old style cord phones, and they get a pencil and it brings up the indents in the paper from what people wrote. Well, you could do that 10 sheets under that and still see an imprint from my printing, because I printed so hard, which meant my arm and my wrist ached within just printing a few words. So Miss Patton talked with respect about my challenge, but then she made sure that my parents knew that I had gifts. So in talking to people about being resilient, if there's one part that's really tough, we all have a few spots in resiliency that are tough, and then we have spots that are easy for us to do. And not everybody can do what we do easily. So could I sell well? Absolutely. Thanks to my parents. Head up, look people in the eye, but don't stare, look away, look away. Basic social skills, but they really made sure I knew how to use them. And that served me well. I ended up to have a lawn cutting business at between 11 and 14 years old. So I cut lawns every summer for many days of the week with my tiny gas lawnmower. Made some money. It's good to be an entrepreneur. Help people and my parents. And if they're seniors, half price. So my childhood was learning about differences, gifts. I found out I had a good ear for music. Nobody would ever hire me to be a professional singer, but I have a great sense of rhythm and timing, and I had fun singing along to others who have good singing voices. And they go, wow, you're really good. I said, only when you're good, because I'm copying you. And they're like, oh. So most of them didn't know I was a good mimic. I was just that little bit of a beat behind them, but I could do what they did as long as they did it well. They did it bad, I did it bad. So childhood, I love sports. I was not good at it, but I loved the social part of playing what we call softball. So 3 bases plus a home plate, bat, a little bit like cricket, but not. And we had a lot of fun. Played for years. And back then, you were allowed to not use nasty words, but you were allowed to trash
Mm-hmm.
talk. So if one of my friends was on the other team and he's at bat ready to try to hit the pitcher's ball, hey, batter, those are cute socks. Did you borrow your grandma's? So I was very good at distracting people. So
Mm-hmm.
my social skills. So all of that led up to me learning about how to be more resilient. And so then I decided after my cancer issues that I should do it for a living. And so that's how I arrived to where I'm at. Since 1987, I've been teaching people all over North America and sometimes outside of North America with the internet how to be resilient, what it is, why it matters, because it affects our grades in school, our graduation rates. It does a lot of things for us. So that's what I'm up to.
Oh, that's a really great thing, and you are, that your childhood is really amazing and really cool.
I was very
And
blessed.
that's really great to know. And there are only few people on the earth that have a really wonderful and really peaceful childhood. And that's really great to know about your childhood.
Thank you. Thank you. So
It's
for
my
your
pleasure.
viewers,
So, yes, 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 sir.
did you want to talk about what is and how do you get more resiliency now?
Sorry, I don't understand that.
Would you like me to talk about how to be more resilient?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I've learned, but I also made sure that I went and read what the experts who have doctorate degrees and have lots of wisdom from ancient cultures, because it's just not
Mm-hmm.
about me, it's about your viewers, their siblings, their parents, their family, their school. So resiliency is about choices we make and skills we learn. There's 2 parts to resiliency to get started. There's the what's going on in your head and your heart, how you've nurtured your spirit, very important.
Mm-hmm.
And the second part of resiliency is what are the resources around you? So when I had my concussion, I was only 2 hours away from a major hospital that was specialized in children. Very blessed to have that 2 hours away. It was a long time ago. There was no paved roads. They were gravel. My mom had to phone my dad at work. He had to drive an hour home and drive the hour and a half to 2 hours to the hospital back. So it wasn't immediate hospital, but I was blessed that they were there. So resiliency, inside resiliency and outside what's around you. So on inside resiliency, we've talked about, do you have the problem or does the problem have you? And so how do you choose to see it? How do you frame it? How do you see your issue? So that's the first one. So my printing, I have the issue. But way back in time, they didn't know there was a name for it. They just knew that 1 out of 100 kids had this printing issue. And as one of my managers at 18 or 19 said, Ballard, that's not printing, that's chicken scratch. And that's pretty much what it looked like. I could read my own printing, but not many others could. So how do you see your issues? How do you own your issue? Because if it owns you, it usually means we feel helpless and hopeless and we can't change it. Well, by grade 9, I knew I had to change this. So I saved my money and I bought a typewriter. My marks went up 15 to 20% because then the teacher could read everything I did. So I didn't bring it to school to write tests because back then you weren't allowed to do that. I wish I could have, but And so it made my homework go easier with less stress. So that was me saying, how do I fix this printing issue? I learned to play the piano, partially because if I play the piano, will that give me better hand control? Turns out it does, but only on the piano, not for printing. So partly with resiliency, how do you see the problem? Gratitude, blessings. What do you have that is good? And so to go back to my childhood, I have loving parents. Printing hurts my marks, made my grade 2 teacher very grouchy at me. She felt I was just lazy. That's her problem. We now know I tried my best. My parents got me special help. It was nice to have the personal attention and the assistance, but it didn't change the printing, much to my annoyance. So gratitude, perspective. Now, some call it self-definition, but how do you define yourself? So you're a communicator. I define you as a bridge builder. You connect people, you engage people. You are making this world a better, nicer place as we work across age, race, gender, faith, because it makes it a safer, more uplifted world. So that's how I would define you. I try to do the same thing, only I do it through teaching resiliency. And so self-identification. So I define Michael as a gentleman trying to always be very respectful, sometimes silly, often joyful, to get people to pay attention to their resiliency so they can learn 1, 2, or if they take a course, a whole lot of things. But even learning just 3 things can change your resiliency. So when I had my panic attacks and I'd wake up in the night when I was fighting cancer, scared out of my mind, a little voice would say, hey, who's in charge? Me or the cancer? And I'd have to stand up. I was pretty weak. I lost a lot of weight, 167, 169 pounds to 133. So I'd stand there by the edge of my bed, sort of shaky and I'd say, I'm in charge. Of course, I had a roommate, so I couldn't say it out loud, but in my head, I'm in charge, not the cancer. I'm in charge. And I'd get all mad and weepy. Okay, I'm going for a walk. And by the end of the walk, and by the way, just talking about this, I still break out in a sweat like it just happened. And I came back. I could go back to sleep because I was in charge. Yes, I had cancer, but the cancer did not own me. I can laugh now, but my eyes are a little watery. I broke out into sweat because it was a very powerful time. So how do you define yourself? So I got asked to work with some children whose parents had died. And I show up and there's 80 children, 3 years old to 15. Oh my gosh. They could have been a room full of very sad, and they had every right to be sad. But what we had was a room full of kids whose grandparents loved them and was nurturing them. And so that was a powerful lesson, to see these kids that could have been angry at mom and dad dying, disappearing. But instead I had a room full of kids that were so loved. It was just remarkable. So those are some of the things. And I know we're running out of time.
Yes.
So it's great to be here. I would like to give you, by PDF file, a couple of breathing exercises, because one of the ways to keep this calm so we stay more resilient and more reflective to stay safe is staying calm through breathing exercises. So through my singing lessons, which I wasn't very good at, my piano teacher, my trumpet lessons, my band lessons, my big ones, my lessons in faith with my minister, and many other places in life, breathing is key. Because if you can practice breathing and staying calm, you stay safer. You stay more focused. So I will give you 2 breathing exercises for your listeners and viewers that they can practice and have some fun with, and just see what it's like, because they're really good to do before you write a test at school. Helps you be calmer. And to quote a little boy of grade 3 many years ago who I helped teach to be calm, it helps your brains come out on the test when you're calm. Sound good?
Oh, that's really great.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for telling us about that. And it is really, thank you so much. And it is a really great honor that to know about you more. So, okay. So, as always, I was saying, because let's keep moving on and on, because our audience are waiting for the next question. They are saying, let's keep moving on and on. So, okay, so my next question is just like this, that that most of people are having a best time of their lives. So, I want to know that which is the best time of your life and why. So, yes.
Oh, that's a great question. However, our circumstances are all different. So I could have a bad time when I was 17 with my bowel disease that was very painful, and 5 or 6 hours it was like, oh, and then it was like, okay, does the bowel disease have me or do I have the bowel disease? I had the bowel disease, so I could get up, shower, freshen up, shave, spend time with a parent, siblings, and go off to school, practicing calmness. And when I get to school, see my friends and still have laughter and joy. So in the middle of the night, when I was having pain, it was not a good day. But going to school, acknowledging the pain, but then and then spending time, investing time with friends and having joyful moments, that was a good time. So even in the cancer ward, I had terrible times, but I had best times. So I'd say that the best time of our life, it can be at any point in our life. My high school teacher that I met when I moved back to the area, I sought her out, and we'd go for coffee and conversations. And at 96, she was still having a lot of joy in her life. The laughter was remarkable. I had an economics teacher. I came back to Toronto area from working out of town after many years, and I found Peter, and Peter and I went out for coffee and conversations, and again, lots of laughter. And of course, when you're 50 and your teacher's 75, 80, the last time he saw me, I was still a teenager. So now we're adults. So I still stayed respectful because he's older than me and he was a very good teacher. But now you can have some playful moments different than in the classroom. So when's the best time of your life? People always say, oh, when you're a kid, you don't have to work, you don't have to this. Well, when you're a kid, you have homework. You have duties around the house. You have siblings to maybe look out for. So there's still some responsibility to learn. So I'd say that any time in your life can be the best time, and whether that's by the moment for an hour or a week or by a decade. So yes, I have 2 chronic illnesses, and yes, I've had cancer, and I've almost faced dying 3 times, and I had 5 major treatments, which were not fun. But even in the hospital, when I was coming out of treatments, I would find ways to be joyful and respectful. So after one of my surgeries for fighting cancer did not work right, when I came back to the hospital and I'm, oh, doc, something wrong. It really hurts. Oh, Michael, that's not fun. I said, I know. And of course, I looked at him and I said, and to tease, because this hurts so much, I can't stay serious the whole time. Is there a warranty for this surgery? Which is, of course, a silly thing to say. Some would even say foolish, but he laughed. Him laughing helped me feel a little bit better, even though I was in serious pain, and I found out later I could have died within 2 or 3 days if I hadn't gone to the hospital. So when's the best time of your life? I'd say it's when you make it to be. Not to deny what you're going through. We still got problems and issues to be solved or stay safe from, but with our circumstances, we got to do our best.
That was a really wonderful and time, and it was really amazing to know about it.
Thank you.
So, and you know that you are doing a really great work, and it is best to know that you are doing a lot of work. So, as you know that, sir, that you are doing a lot of work. So, I want to know that what do you like the most between your work? You know.
Oh, uh, I like almost all the work except the paperwork. But when I'm at the front of the room, whether I got to work at the local school with some kindergarten, some 4 and 5-year-olds, right up to grade 8s.
Hmm.
Not all at once. So kindergartens, then 1s and 2s, then 3s and 4s. I really enjoyed it. I really like being inclusive. So different cultures and different faiths have different beliefs, and that's good. So before we had COVID, we would do high fives at the end of the program. And of course, I had one of the young ladies come up and say, "Sir, we can't do high fives because you're a stranger to us." I said, "Fine, but we can do air high fives from 5 and 6 feet away." And so I had 20 odd young ladies high five me, air high fives from 6 feet away with lots of giggles. And so it was about staying respectful, staying engaged, and treating everybody equal but different because different beliefs. So that I like because I learned that we could all do it together. And then what was really cute at the end of the day, they told their friends about Michael doing air high fives so they could participate. And they asked me to come to the principal's office. And of course, I like to be silly and serious too. And I said, "Am I in trouble?" And they waited till we got to the principal's office and they got her attention. And I got 30 kids giving me a hug. So that was a very memorable day. And then I got to work at a senior's home where everybody in the room was 88 years old and older, right up to 103. That was really wonderful because there was so much wisdom with the elders in the room. And I was hired to get them to laugh about getting old. And getting old can be wonderful. Grandchildren, great-grandchildren, that's all beautiful. But maybe you have arthritis, so you can't play the piano anymore. Or maybe you have a bad knee, so you need a walker and you can't go for those beautiful, crisp walks. So I was asked to speak to them just for 50 minutes to talk about gratitude. A lot of us don't make it to 80. Everybody here is 88 and older. Wow, what a blessing. You get to live in a city, in a country where we're all safe. Not perfect here, but for the most part, we're safe. You get to live in a space where it's easily to access best healthcare. There's a hospital down the road by 30 minutes, and there's another hospital up the road by 70 minutes. A lot of cultures don't have that. So I had a great time, and they were so thankful. And I had a great grandma come over, and she kept patting me on the arm. "Dear, and she confused my energy for age. You should meet my granddaughter." I said, "Well, if she's as much fun as the grandmother, I would be delighted." But of course, then I made sure she knew I was married, so there was no meeting granddaughters after that. So it was fun to get her to feel that engaged with me and that connected with me that she wanted me to introduce her to her family. So I like that. And then, of course, I work with business professionals. I work with a sales team that had a catastrophic business year, and the company was in threat of closing. So we talked about how do you deal with setbacks? How do you deal with adversity? How do you go to work every day knowing that you might fail? So again, we talked about gratitude, perspective, the skills you do have that got you this far in your career, and what's your focus for the day, for the week, the month. Because if you only focus on the failures, you are not going to be that successful. You got to acknowledge the failures and then focus on the successes to come. So those are some of the things I love to do.
Oh, that's really great to know about this thing, and it's really great to know about your other things too. So in this case, yes, sir. Yes, you can speak.
Oh, I would just say thank you.
It's my pleasure. So, as you said, it is time to end the show, and it was really nice meeting you, and you are a really great person, and keep up your good work.
Thank you very much. I will send you some PDF files for breathing exercises because there's some of the foundation things to do to be resilient.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Thank you. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful day too. Bye.
And you have a good evening. Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Bye.